Hello, hello, hello. How are we doing? YGGA's in the chat. Hello, hello. Antonio in there, of course. Captain Bricks. Jesse de Groot. Bonjour. How are we all feeling? Are we ready to have a little Austrian sprint race? The home of Red Bull. Not Red Bull Racing, but Red Bull. So little bit of a Red Bull special this weekend. Max Verstappen starting on pole. Who's going to win the sprint? I think you'd have to do something special to get past Max Verstappen. He's very good in Austria. It's one of those tracks that there's a few drivers that really are kind of Austria specialists. I don't know how you'd kind of put it, but Max Verstappen's always quick here. He's absolutely dominated it. Even back to like 2021, right? When he was battling with Lewis Hamilton, it was still a really solid performance from him. But Lando Norris just behind him also is really, really solid in Austria. So picked up his first podium, picked up a few podiums here, and has gone really, really quickly around this track too. So there are quite a few drivers that, quite like the Austrian circuit. It's got big elevation changes. It's very, very short. It's one of those ones where there's a few corners that if you absolutely nail, you can go so much quicker than everybody else. And those drivers that kind of suit those corners, they absolutely love it. I'm ill at the moment. Oh, mate, I was ill earlier on in the week. Hope you feel better soon. There's definitely something going around, which is annoying because this is like the 1 week of summer we get in the UK. And I haven't really been able to do much about it. Like, I haven't been able to go out and do too much. Austria is my favorite track. It's up there. Yeah, I'd say it's up there for me when I'm playing the game. I think because it's quite a short track and because there's, 11 corners, but a couple of the corners are sort of flat out. I think it's one of those tracks where if you nail it, it feels so clean, but also it's short enough that if you make a mistake, you're on the next lap straight away anyway. Whereas somewhere like Spa, I mess up the first corner and then I'm like, okay, it's another couple of minutes until I can have another go at this. So I think it's one of those things that the drivers quite like that as well. You get to, if you did mess up a lap, you're back at it straight away anyway. You're back on it. You can have another go very, very quickly. Am I Max Fosh? No. No. I get that a lot though. I got that from just a random passerby the other day. Like I get it when, you see a short or you see a video and you're like, oh, that guy looks like Max Fosh. And you're in the YouTube sphere, right? Like, I make YouTube content. He makes YouTube content. I can kind of understand that. I was literally just walking around Norwich City Centre and someone stopped me and thought I was Max Fosh. And I was just, what can I do? I don't even think I look that much like him. I think there's obviously, we're two white guys from the UK, but I don't think we look like that similar. You know what I mean? I don't think he's right my kind of doppelganger. Although I haven't met him in person. Maybe if I meet him in person, I'll be completely rolled up wrong. How are we all doing? Papa Snarf, good morning, you scallywags. Brilliant. 2019 was crazy. Yeah, that was a very, very solid race. Do you think Oscar will win a race this year? I really hope so. I feel like the sprint races, it seems obvious to say, obviously, because he won the Qatar sprint race last year. But I feel like the sprint races and the sprint weekends do kind of give him a little bit of an advantage. Because the thing that he's really missing, and I made a video about this a few weeks ago, and he's getting better, he's getting closer to being fixed, but he's still missing just a little bit when it comes to the final stage of a tyre stint. So, I don't know, say Lando Norris is going to pit lap 20. He will kind of use up his tyres in an effective manner that when he gets to lap 20, he can absolutely blitz them, use everything that is left, and still have continuous kind of pace throughout that 20 laps. The thing that Oscar is missing is he's absolutely rapid for, say, 15 of those 20 laps. Okay, so Oscar's also pitting on lap 20. I know they wouldn't pit on the same exact lap, but hear me out. Oscar's absolutely blitzing for 15 laps. He has very similar pace to Lando Norris. Like, they are almost identical in terms of qualifying pace and race pace. I think Oscar is only a couple of tenths off in terms of qualifying average. Kind of take out the few outliers, it's within a tenth. He's very, very close. And then you have Lando, and then in the race, sorry, those first 15 laps of that 20-lap stint, Oscar is right there with Lando. I think the thing is, that final 5 laps, Oscar Piastri just hasn't quite got that ability yet. And it is really hard in this McLaren car. It's something that the McLaren is inherently quite bad at. Oscar hasn't quite got to grips with just holding onto those tires just well enough to get that like final boost out of that last 5 laps. Because what you'll see is Lando Norris will turn it up in those last 5 laps. He'll rinse the tires for everything they've got. Oscar Piastri has to continue on that same trajectory he was on. He doesn't have that ability because he's already put the tires in a window where there's nothing more to give. He can't, use that last 5 laps to then click in and do it. And that's when Oscar kind of really falls into it. The second thing with Oscar for me is we haven't seen him, really go for like some banging overtaking moves. And I think it's that little bit of tire degradation worry from him. He's kind of aware that if he does go for some really big overtakes, that does take even more out of the tires, and therefore kind of puts him even more in a position where he has to pit a little bit earlier, he has to use the tires in a slightly different way, or he has to decrease his pace towards the end of the stint even more. So I think that's the thing for me with Oscar Piastri right now, is he just needs that tiny little bit at the end of a stint, and then he is the full package, because he is so quick. Like, I as a McLaren fan, I know I'm wearing a Mercedes top, as a McLaren fan, absolutely love the fact that we brought Oscar Piastri in. I think he is soon to be one of those top drivers. He's just got that little thing to fix. And once that's fixed, God knows, he could definitely rattle up, could be right up alongside Lando Norris. I think it's going to take another season or 2 for him to be right up there, like every single race. I think we're going to start seeing it occasional weekends like this, where there's a sprint race and you don't have to worry about your tires and you don't have to hold on to them and worry about extending a stint or not having to extend a stint. You just absolutely go for it. Like, I feel like Oscar Piastri is right there. When did Max Voss start covering F1? Excellent. Welcome to Max Voss. I swear, I get it all the time. Any particular reason for wearing the Merc t-shirt? It was just in the cupboard. Threw it on. I do think Mercedes have the best merchandise. And I think it's not McLaren's fault as such, but the orange is oppressive. You know what I mean? Like, it does not go with much. If you're wearing a bright orange jumper, you stand out in a crowd. I'll tell you that much, basically. And so, as much as I love the McLaren merchandise, the bright orange is sometimes a bit much. I do think the fact, Tommy Hilfiger, Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, they have got the best merchandise of the teams. Ferraris is pretty good, actually, as well. I think the top teams, the fact that they're able to work with, big brands in terms of their merchandise and have that kind of connection, it is that little bit cleaner, that little bit better. Whereas, like, I have never seen anybody ever wearing, like, a Haas shirt. Like, you see Formula One kind of merchandise a bit more, I think, especially kind of post-Drive to Survive. And the fact that Formula One is becoming a little bit more kind of followed by people on the periphery, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like we're pretty hardcore. If you're in the chat right now, you're at the upper echelons of Formula One. You're watching every race, you're watching every qualifying session, you're even then watching the sprint and the sprint qualifying sessions. You're maybe even the kind of person that would chuck on a free practice. There are a lot of fans out there that just watch the race, right? They will not watch the qualifying. They'll catch up on the qualifying just before the Grand Prix starts. They'll watch the race. And there's some people that love Formula One, but will only watch the highlights. Like, they don't have time to watch the entire Formula One Grand Prix. They'll just watch it. I think that's becoming more and more of a thing. Like, people just kind of catching up with Formula One every now and then. But I think the merchandise, the fact that Formula One has kind of always had fairly decent merchandise compared to other sports, in my opinion. Like, I go into a shop for, like, the Norwich shop that is literally down the road from me, and the apparel that you can buy for Norwich City Football Club is pretty horrendous. Whereas you go on the McLaren store and it is beautiful. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's becoming more and more popular. I've never seen someone wearing like a Haas jumper. You know what I mean? I see a McLaren, I see a Mercedes, I see a Ferrari, occasionally even a Red Bull. I've seen Red Bull more caps. I don't know if Red Bull do like apparel in the same way. Max Fosh merch. I can't really. I feel like there's quite a few content creators in the Formula One space kind of getting involved in the merch. I've got Tomo's kind of t-shirt, the first drop from Tomo. Isn't Mr. V's garage, however you say it. He's also kind of doing some merchandise, although I don't think that's actually linked to his channel. I think he does. He promotes it on his channel, but it's not necessarily going to say like Mr. V across the front. You know what I mean? Slap it on a buff, Matt. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Shall we have a little look at the starting grid then? I've waffled on a little bit about merchandise there. So we'll skip a couple of the news stories and we'll jump straight into the starting 20. Hello, Vishnu. How you doing? Also, whilst we're on it, if you see this bottle, this is... I found Vimto like squash, and it is the most addictive thing I think I've ever had. I can't remember the last time I drank anything other than Vimto squash. I am rattling through it, but it's really good. Probably terrible for my like insides and internal organs, but absolutely wonderful. Shall we break it down then? Should we start from the back? Let's start from the back. Alex Albon and Zhou Guanyu will start at the back of the pack. Alex Albon taking another penalty, so dropping down a position. Zhou Guanyu was slowest yesterday, but Williams, I think, just using this middle part of the season to tinker a little bit with their car, because I have to remember the beginning part of the season for Williams was atrocious. They were really struggling to bring upgrades. I mean, they were struggling to get 2 cars out on track for the first 5 races because of the incident in Australia. We obviously saw Logan Sargent sit out of that race. They were then really struggling in Japan and then had another couple of incidents. Logan Sargent hit the wall. Albon had a collision with Daniel Ricciardo. Then in China as well, they had to send the car back, send it back to China. Like, they were really struggling as a team to actually just get the cars out on track every single weekend, let alone worry about manipulating and making new parts and trying to find pace here and there where possible. So the fact that they're kind of tinkering a little bit now, I think, is a remnant of that. The fact that they weren't able to really put on the upgrades and make the changes that they wanted to in the first few races and try out different parts of floors and different parts of wings and various things that they would have had planned for the first few races just because they were solely trying to get the cars fixed, I think is why we're seeing a little bit of a dip in form from Williams. And also just the fact that everyone else is also getting much, much quicker. Apart from Stake, Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas starting in 19th and 18th place. Both of those drivers still fighting for their lives. Obviously, neither of them confirmed for the Formula One grid next year. It looks like both of them will probably leave Stake Sauber. Obviously, Nico Hülkenberg already confirmed into one of those seats. Then it's like, do you choose Bottas or Zhou? And they've said Carlos Sainz. So they look like they are going to try and get rid of both. I think Valtteri Bottas might hold on to a seat as a little bit of a last ditch. If they can't get hold of Ocon or Sainz, then I think so. All right. Can you tell us early in the morning? I think Carlos Sainz is their first choice at Stake Sauber. I think Esteban Ocon is kind of in the mix underneath second, third choice. And then I think underneath that, there's like, maybe we keep hold of Valtteri Bottas for another season. You know what I mean? But I think both Zhou and Bottas will find themselves out of that Audi project within the next couple of years. And if either one of them stays, it will be like a 1-year contract. 2026, when Audi come in, it'll change around and they'll find somebody else. I think that they'll want to go in that seat. There is Nico Hülkenberg just in front of him, obviously leaving Haas, taking that Stake Sauber seat, as I said, and he starts in 17th place. Another driver who is kind of in a nice position, had a really solid start to the season and has kind of proved his worth. Now that the Haas car is struggling just a little bit more, they are moving in a slightly different direction, going in a slightly different way. But Nico Hülkenberg knows he's on the grid next season, doesn't need to worry about it too much. Wherever Sainz doesn't go, Bottas goes, so probably Staker Williams. Yeah, exactly. I think Valtteri Bottas is kind of the backup to Carlos Sainz. If you don't get Carlos, you'd try and maybe get Valtteri in just for that experience. And then it's, maybe a couple of seasons out of Valtteri Bottas at the maximum. Does he stay for the 2026 regulation cycle? Maybe for like a year. And then I could see Valtteri Bottas kind of petering out now. Doing a very similar like Kimi Räikkönen kind of thing, right? Was at a top team, was at Mercedes for a very long time, now moved to Alfa Romeo, became Stake Sauber. They're going to want to move in a slightly different direction. And in the way that they got rid of Kimi and Giovinazzi at the same time, I could see them getting rid of Bottas and Joe at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, if they change drivers at Audi, well, Sauber, if they change drivers at Sauber, previously Alfa Romeo, they do it, full. They change both. Get rid of both, get them both in. Another driver who's under a load of pressure, though, Daniel Ricciardo. I kind of jinxed him yesterday, put him on the thumbnail, and then he had an absolute nightmare of a sprint qualifying. Obviously, we were looking back to Miami. We were like, ooh, Daniel Ricciardo loves a sprint weekend. Did so well at the Miami sprint. Not this time around, starting from 16th place. And there's huge question marks over him. We talk about this being the Red Bull Ring and the Red Bull Home Grand Prix. 3 of the 4 drivers have got their confirmations. You know what I mean? 3 of the 4, Max Verstappen staying until possibly 2028 is when he's contracted until. Sergio Perez has got his guarantee from Red Bull that he's got at least 1 more year, possibly with an extension. So there's a 1+1 deal for Sergio Perez effectively. And Yuki Tsunoda, they had a clause in his contract that they could activate if he had performed so well in the first half of the season. They could activate that clause and extend his contract by a year, which they have done. Daniel Ricciardo is the only one yet to pick up a contract as one of those Red Bull drivers. So he starts in 16th place and has got a lot to prove in front of the Red Bull kind of higher-ups that will all be at the Red Bull Ring. Logan Sargent, solid qualifying from Logan. Obviously, the first time that we've seen him in a Williams that is comparable to Alex Albon, and looks like he's done the business. I feel like Logan Sargent, his whole thing coming into Formula One was the fact that he should be quick in qualifying. Haven't really been able to see it. Maybe, just maybe, as it looks like his Formula One career is fully on the turn and about to end, being linked to IndyCar projects already is Logan Sargent. Possibly going over stateside, but starting 15th place, ahead of his teammate. Not too bad at all. Yuki Tsunoda starts in 14th place. I think it was a real struggle for Yuki Tsunoda to kind of show his pace here yesterday. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso starts in 12th and 13th place. The Aston Martin still kind of outside of that top 10. Really tricky, I don't know. It's hard to judge where Aston Martin are going to be every weekend. Fernando Alonso's said multiple times in recent weeks that he's just not happy with the car and the direction that it's going in. He just doesn't quite know where the Aston Martin car is going to end up. But it is confirmed, the Aston Martin team. Lance Stroll also confirmed for the Aston Martin team for next season. They said that on, was it Thursday or Friday? That they've confirmed Lance Stroll will stay on for another 2 years. And I thought that was quite interesting, because usually it's just 1 year, 1 year, 1 year for Lance Stroll. It's kind of a rolling 1 year contract that they have, where he has a clause and it extends by a year. They've rejigged his contract completely. So that means the rolling contract that he had has now been adapted, and he's now been offered 2 years, like a certain 2 years. I think he would have wanted that, just knowing that he's going into the next regulation cycle with a contract. But also, it's interesting because it means the type of contract that he has is changing, and maybe there's possibly a little bit of movement that could happen if, 2026 does go in a certain direction for Aston Martin. Maybe we could see them switch it up slightly. Kevin Magnussen starts in 11th place, just missed out. getting into Q3. It's usually the other Haas, but Kevin Magnussen also fighting for his life. Obviously, it looks like Ollie Behrman is going to fill one of those Haas seats. That feels almost guaranteed. Then it's like, can Kevin Magnussen keep hold of that other seat? And that's kind of up to him, isn't it? He's got a lot to prove, a really tough start to the season, but has been a really solid team player. And I think that's the thing, right? That's the thing he can always point back to. He can be like, yeah, I had a really tough start to the season, but I did help Nico Hulkenberg pick up points in, 2 or 3 Grand Prix and a sprint. So Kevin Magnussen's kind of been a good conduit to pick up points for Nico Hulkenberg. Charles Leclerc, it's a really weird one, isn't it? Charles Leclerc starting in 10th place, had an issue in the pit lane. I'm not sure he would have got round to do a lap anyway, but he didn't manage to set a lap time in the final qualifying session of sprint qualifying yesterday because of an issue with his Ferrari coming to a stop at the end of the pit lane. He did eventually get it going again, but by the time he had done a lap and got back around, it was too late, and Charles Leclerc starts from 10th place. But I feel like in a similar vein to what we saw from Oscar Piastri last time around in Spain, starting behind the Alpines, you've got to get past them quickly. Like, you've got to go for it early on, because what we saw from Piastri was he just got stuck behind Pierre Gasly for such a long time that it completely ruined the rest of his race. And Oscar Piastri, even though he had race pace, wasn't actually able to show it and wasn't able to catch up to the back of the Ferraris in good enough time to actually cause them any kind of headache. It was more just a little bit of a running around on your own for Oscar Piastri in Spain. I don't want to see the same from Charles Leclerc. I really don't want to see him, stuck behind Gasly, stuck behind Ocon, and not able to be in the mix and really fighting with those other cars that, let's face it, he should be up there with had they not made that mistake in qualifying. Had he come out 20 seconds earlier, we'd probably be looking at him qualifying in and around where Carlos Sainz is in 5th place, maybe even higher, because he was looking pretty quick with Charles Leclerc. So where will I see him finishing? I'm just trying to think now. I'm trying to do like a little prediction of the top 8 in my head. I think Leclerc gets into the points. Perez, Hamilton. I could see Charles Leclerc kind of moving up and getting close to the top kind of 4-5 positions, maybe. Although Gasly and Ocon will do everything in their power to kind of keep hold of those points. They are hunting down RB in the constructor standings. They need those points on the board at Alpine. And the opportunity at 1 point, I know it's only 1, but Esteban Ocon starting in 8th place ahead of his teammate Pierre Gasly. They will do everything they can to hold on to that kind of 8th place for either one of the Alpines. I don't think that the team will worry too much which Alpine it is, as long as they can hold on to an 8th place. Sergio Perez, 7th place. It was a bit of an awkward one, wasn't it? If you saw at the end of qualifying yesterday, just a lot of drivers left it way, way too late. Well, I say a lot of drivers. Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon, and Pierre Gasly left it way too late. They all came across the start-finish line basically side by side at the end of qualifying. And I don't know, if he can actually move forward, Sergio Perez, it would be a huge kind of bonus for him. Because let's face it, even though he has got his contract guaranteed and we could see him another couple of years at Red Bull, there's still a lot of criticism for Sergio Perez. And since Monaco, he hasn't really put in a performance where you're like, okay, yeah, he deserves that seat. He does always seem to struggle when it comes to this European stint in the middle of the season. And Canada was a bit of a nightmare. Obviously spun it, put it in the wall. Yeah, we need something from Sergio Perez. It'd be nice to see him kind of highlighted. Lewis Hamilton in 6th place, although had a little bit of damage to his floor. So I saw this after the fact. After the qualifying session yesterday, Lewis Hamilton damaged his floor. He got it whilst he was kind of bouncing over the curbs a little bit. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton, I think he missed out on kind of a 10th or 2 in qualifying. So maybe a little bit behind where he would have expected to be, but they've fixed the floor, haven't replaced the floor. We'll have to kind of see what Lewis Hamilton's pace is like throughout the rest of the weekend and whether they will kind of fix that floor, replace that floor rather than just fixing it like they have. Carlos Sainz starts in 5th place. And it's about where the Ferraris I kind of expected them to be. George Russell just in front in 4th. Kind of an interesting one. We know George Russell loves to kind of just dive for a win if possible. Went around the outside in Spain, managed to be leading that Grand Prix at the beginning. Can he do a similar sort of thing from 4th place, especially with Verstappen and Norris in front of him again? Maybe, just maybe. Oscar Piastri kind of showing his quality again. It's more like where I expect Oscar Piastri to be, just behind his teammate in Lando Norris. In terms of qualifying pace, I do think that Oscar Piastri does have that quality and that ability to be right up there. And then the front row, it's the inverse of what we had in Spain. Norris and Verstappen starting side by side. And we've got Verstappen taking pole position. Will he do the same thing? Will he be as worried about Lando Norris? Try and kind of put him on the grass this time? We'll have to wait and see. But I think that battle down towards turn 1 will be very, very interesting. Also, just as you can see, got the tyres highlighted for everybody. Looks like everyone's gone for a medium compound tyre. The majority going for a used set of mediums as well. A slightly scrubbed set of mediums that they would have used in qualifying yesterday, because you have to use qualifying... So you have to use medium tyres in sprint qualifying up until Q3. So be interesting to see how those tyres hold up and whether or not we'll see how the medium tyre will play out for the race as well. Thank you, Zach, for subscribing to the channel. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button here as well. I can't remember what we ended up on yesterday. I think we got 130 something likes. Let me just double check it. So that is the goal for today. Can we beat the sprint qualifying in terms of likes for today? So hit that like button if you haven't. That is the goal, to try and beat yesterday's sprint. And it got 186 likes, way more than I thought. Wow, 186 likes on the sprint shootout yesterday. Can we get 200 today? I reckon you guys could get up to 200 likes if you really went for it. The sprint race is just about to begin. We're about 30 seconds off the beginning of the sprint race. Lando Norris, more like Lando no sprint wins. Okay. It's pretty good. Pretty good. We will get a sprint win. Don't you worry. It's coming. Hello, Sally's in the chat as well. How you doing, Sally? What broadcast channel am I using? This is Multiviewer. The logo there. Or up here as well. Multiviewer is all over the screen when it comes to our Formula 1 races and coverage. Multiviewer provide all of the data that you will see throughout, and we will break down every single thing that we can do. 155 to go. Oh, okay. It's not too bad. Not too bad. We're early. We're early. The sprint hasn't even started yet. So I'm sure you guys can do it. And beat the sprint shootout that we had yesterday. Tyre warmers are off the cars then. Cars just lining up on the grid. You turned into Mercedes guy for today instead of McLaren. Yeah, I don't know. My McLaren top is in the wash. Maybe I'll wear it later on for the actual qualifying session for the Grand Prix. So oh, we are underway for the formation lap. Max Verstappen getting us going. Shall we move over to slightly more detailed board so you can see Max Verstappen just coming up the hill towards turn 3. But yeah, what was I saying? Multiviewer, thank you to them. Lots of good stuff. Then there was something else. Oh yeah, 155 likes to go. Mercedes guy, that was what I was saying. My McLaren top is in the wash. Maybe I'll wear it a little later on. I have got my McLaren jumpers, but it's way too hot. It's the third day of summer in the UK. I think it is the end of the summer in the UK after this evening, but it is way too hot, especially with all these lights on, and I have to close the doors, and it just gets very, very warm in here. So it is a top day rather than a jumper day indeed. I argue that, you know, it's Mercedes powered. McLaren are Mercedes powered. And also, I think this was a Christmas present. You know, when someone buys you like Formula 1 merch, they don't understand Formula 1, but they just buy you Formula 1 merch because they know that you like Formula 1, and it doesn't necessarily align with, you know, your characteristics. So I've got some Ferrari merch too. Not a Ferrari fan, but people know Ferrari, so they'll buy you Ferrari Formula 1 merchandise. Monaco 2024 was the most live stream. How did that happen? One, there was a red flag. That always helps because people kind of join during the red flag because there's not too much happening, obviously, out on track. So they'll kind of join the live stream, just have a little chat about what's happened in the race so far. So actually, a red flag is really good for viewership. This is very inside baseball while we kind of see the cars lining up on the grid. But yeah, a red flag is really good for viewership. And it was a really good time. A lot of my audience is European-based. I know that we have a massive mix of people in the chat for these live streams. But generally, if I look at my channel, it's not that hot in the UK right now. Oh, but it's warm here. Norwich is the way to be, apparently. Yeah, it was one of those things where it was like, why am I blanking today? One of those things where European races do a little bit better on my channel in general. Oh, okay, green flag. Let's zone in, shall we? Because I've just talked some absolute nonsense. I'm losing my mind. I think it's because I haven't had breakfast yet. I was like, I'm gonna eat after. I want to be eating. Oh. No. Extra formation lap. Okay. Race start aborted. Extra formation lap. Not sure why, but we're going to go around again for another formation lap. So I've got enough time. Albon in the pits. Yeah, I think Williams just tinkering again. Just changing up some bits and pieces. Oh. What's that? Another formation lap. So that will reduce the racing laps by 1. Obviously, the car's only fueled for a certain amount of laps. So there's not too much we can do. If there's another formation lap, we just kind of lose out on a lap of racing. Interesting, though. Not really sure why. It's a good little kind of reset for all the drivers, I guess, but no one seems to know why we had an aborted race start. That is so weird. I'm trying to look if there's any kind of information on the multi-viewer stuff. But no. Just another formation lap. It is. Interesting. Should get a sponsorship from multi-viewer. No. They provide all of this for free. Like, it's kind of a collaboration more than a sponsorship, if that makes sense. They provide all of the data. I try and kind of point people towards their product. And I feel like they give more than enough. You know what I mean? I would not want any monetary value. And like in the same way that I don't pay them for it, but when they released merchandise, like when they released the hats, I was like, okay, I'll buy a hat. And I do send them a little bit of money at the start and kind of in the middle of each season just to say thank you. But they don't have to pay and I don't have to pay. It's kind of a collaboration thing. Anyway. Yeah, no one seems to know. Could be a fault with the lights. Yeah, it could be. It was either... I literally don't know. Literally don't know. Could have been a fault with the light. The thing was, we got the green flag. The guy... So, at the back of the grid, and you'll see this if you kind of watch the races, at the back of the grid, once all 20 cars, or in our case, 19 cars are lined up on the grid, there's a guy on the left-hand side of the track. He walks across the back of all the cars and waves a green flag to effectively say all the cars are in position and we're ready to go. And you'll also see like the safety car behind as well. That kind of dips into the pits at the start of the lap. But here we are. We're underway. And let's get going. Max Verstappen, another really solid launch from the Red Bull. Oscar Piastri, though, starting to make a little bit of a headache for his teammate. No, decides to slot in just behind. Carlos Sainz also under pressure from Hamilton. slots in. Charles Leclerc with a stunning start in the Ferrari jumps up in front of both of the Alpines. Here comes Oscar Piastri then on Lando Norris. The McLaren side by side through turn 3, and Lando Norris just closes the door on Oscar for now. Carlos Sainz once again has a little look at George Russell. They're getting side by side down towards turn 4. And it's going to be the McLarens again. Max Verstappen looking in his wing mirrors and licking his lips because everybody behind having a little bit of a squabble. Carlos Sainz is trying to go around the outside of the red and gets it. Russell is down into 5th place. Carlos Sainz up into 4th. Sergio Perez is also now under pressure from Leclerc, and Leclerc gets the move done. Stunning move from him. Both of the Alpines have had a disastrous start. Kevin Magnussen up into 9th place now. Ocon down to 10th from 8th. Gasly down to 12th from 9th. Lance Stroll's been able to make a move forwards into 11th, while Fernando Alonso has lost a position to Yuki Tsunoda behind. But let's enter lap 2 of this sprint race. Max Verstappen leads. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri behind. Carlos Sainz has made that move up into 4th place, and George Russell now 5th. Hamilton behind his teammate and just slots in behind him. Has a little look, but doesn't go for a move just yet. DRS is now enabled, of course. Charles Leclerc in 7th place. A stunning start from the Ferrari, up 3 positions from where he began. Sergio Perez down into 8th place and the final point scoring place. Kevin Magnussen will be hoping that one of the top 8 drivers just has a problem somewhere to pick up another point for Haas this season. Esteban Ocon, though, under pressure from Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll making a move, and Ocon down into 11th place. Lance Stroll gets in front of the Alpine and up into 10th. So Lance Stroll also knocking on the door of the point scoring places now after a pretty poor qualifying from him yesterday. Now up into it though. Ocon and Gasly side by side in the Alpines, chasing down the positions they started in. Magnussen and Stroll are the guys in front. Starting lap 3 though, and Lando Norris has just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. A couple attempts quicker than Max Verstappen. Of course, has the DRS, does Lando Norris, to kind of help him out. And he's now having a little look at Max Verstappen. The problem is he's also got Oscar Piastri in his periphery as well. All 3 of those top 3 drivers having a little look at one another. DRS is open for Lando Norris. Tries to make a move down towards turn 4. No, can't this time around. Max Verstappen closes the door on him. And this is the thing. Lando Norris now a little bit out of shape through turn 4. Doesn't want to open the gap to Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri right behind his teammate once again and under the rear wing of the other McLaren. The DRS is really kind of pushing the McLarens forwards. Lando Norris needs to be careful, though, to keep himself within a second, because that was a little bit out of shape through turn 4, and you've seen how that just affected him through that entire middle sector. 5, 6, 7, just a little bit shaky from Lando Norris, but we're now back on lap 4 of the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen goes into turn 1 leading again. The DRS zone just isn't quite making the moves where possible. Maybe some drivers just holding onto their tyres a little bit, obviously using scrubbed sets from yesterday. Lando Norris not as close as he was last time around, but closing in and actually going for a slightly different position through turn 3. DRS wide open down towards turn 4. Is he going to have another look again? He is. Peels out to the left-hand side of the track. And Lando Norris tries to go around the outside, but he's just not quite close enough. That does look like the overtaking opportunity, though, for Lando Norris. Down towards turn 4. Needs a little bit cleaner middle sector on this lap compared to last for me. Just needs to keep himself within that touching distance. But I think the thing is, the Red Bull's so planted through this middle sector. Bodes very well, though, for Lando Norris's pace in the Grand Prix, because he's right under the rear wing of the Red Bull. And it is this kind of start-finish straight, gets the DRS open, up towards the hill, then is right behind Max Verstappen, uses the DRS once again effectively down towards turn 3. It's down towards turn 4 where he really goes for the overtaking move. Just kind of slots himself in behind the Red Bull. No, darts up the inside of turn 3. Wasn't expecting it as tries to catch Max Verstappen cold and has. Lando Norris lunges up the inside and moves up into the lead of this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen DRS for Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen's going to come right back at him at turn 4. So open the door for Oscar Piastri to try and lead in. And Piastri comes up the inside of his teammate and is side by side with the McLarens. And Oscar Piastri around the outside has just got enough pace. And that diving maneuver up at turn 3 opened the door for Lando Norris to take the lead. He then lost it to Max Verstappen as he came back at him at turn 4. And around the outside came Oscar Piastri at turn 5 to take second place from Lando Norris. Absolutely stunning stuff from these top 3 drivers right now. And Oscar Piastri is now the man looking at another sprint victory in his Formula 1 career. Lando Norris looking back at his teammate, ruining that opportunity. He was at the lead of the sprint race for just a moment and now down all the way into 3rd. And they're actually opening the door a little bit, losing a little bit of time through that middle sector has allowed Carlos Sainz, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton to also lead in. Lando Norris now looking in his rear wing mirrors once again and looking at Carlos Sainz. Let's have a little look at this replay then. I wasn't expecting the move from Lando Norris, and neither, I think, was Max Verstappen. Lando Norris darted up the inside at turn 3. Closed in. Max Verstappen tried to turn in, then realized the McLaren was there and had to back out of it. But it looked like Max Verstappen then just got right under the rear wing of Lando Norris and darted up the inside at turn 4 and returned the compliment. Little bit of a lockup from Max Verstappen, but got the move done. And this is where it is. Lando Norris then, distracted by Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri can just enter the corner at the speed, carrying the momentum through. And Oscar Piastri then round the outside at turn 5 is able to make the move fully stick and gets himself up into second place. So Lando Norris in the sort of 3 corners went from 2nd to 1st to 3rd. And Oscar Piastri now looking at the back of Max Verstappen. Verstappen on the radio. Clipping way too much. So Max Verstappen having a little issue with his engine when he's getting right to the top of that top speed. Clipping in terms of the engine. Feels like that's why the McLarens are maybe able to close in that little bit more. Sergio Perez really disappointingly 2.5 seconds off the back of Charles Leclerc. And you can see that front 3 has now escaped away again from Carlos Sainz. It is really a pack of 3 at the front. The 2 McLarens causing Max Verstappen a little bit of a headache. Carlos Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc kind of running around as a 4 behind that. Sergio Perez already all by himself as we're 8 laps in to this sprint race in Austria. And it's been eventful so far for the cars towards the top end of the grid. So moving backwards, Kevin Magnussen still in 9th place, Lance Stroll still in 10th. The Alpines have dropped back to 11th and 12th from where they started. And George Russell having a little look at Carlos Sainz. Interrupt myself. George Russell now. Turn 3 down towards turn 4 has got the DRS wide open right on the rear wing of Carlos Sainz. He's going to try and make the move as George Russell. DRS is there and actually gets ahead of the Ferrari before they even get to turn 4. George Russell back up into 4th place where he started and putting Carlos Sainz back where he started in 5th. Carlos Sainz now with Lewis Hamilton in his rear wing. It does look like the Mercedes has suddenly turned up to the party, doesn't it? And is really in and amongst these top 3 teams. You know, at the beginning of the season, we were saying Ferrari looked like the closest competitor to Red Bull. That now seems to have very dramatically switched to McLaren being the fastest of the pack, possibly even quicker than the Red Bull on certain circuits. And Mercedes have finally been able to sort out their 2022 regulation cycle car. It's only taken a couple of seasons for them to get back in this little mix. Oh, and Oscar Piastri, he's right under the rear wing. Lando Norris seems to have dropped off a little bit. Maybe a mistake from Lando Norris in there. Seems like it. He was well off the pace in comparison to where he normally is. Maybe Lando just not quite being able to hold on to these tyres after going for it. Throwing the points, unfortunately not. So only the top 8 drivers score points when it comes to the sprint race. So it is the top 4 teams that are absolutely rattling through the point scoring places right now. Perez does not deserve to be anywhere near the top 7. I mean, he's 8th, so yeah. Lando Norris still has the fastest lap of the sprint race so far, but you can see we're 6/10 down. And really struggling, just coming over the start-finish line. Again, it's not looking good for Lando Norris at all. I think Piastri just kind of biding his time a little bit, looking still at the rear wing of Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz is now really under pressure from Lewis Hamilton as well. The McLaren, the Mercedes car just does look that little bit quicker than the Ferrari. I think the problem that Hamilton will have is Carlos Sainz is still within DRS range of George Russell in front. So what Lewis Hamilton really needs is George Russell to actually escape away a little bit, get Carlos Sainz outside of that DRS range and open up a gap so that Hamilton has the DRS advantage over the Ferrari. What happened to Lewis? Nothing. Started in 6th, still running in 6th, still good. Hamilton now just looking at the back of the Ferrari, Carlos Sainz. Max leading fast McLaren cars. Tells you a lot about him. Very true. Yeah, you've got to say, Max Verstappen is still a very, very quick driver. Oscar Piastri has, though, dropped outside of the DRS range. So has Lando Norris. So the front 3 that were interchanging positions almost every lap. Well, there was a lap where the front 3 interchanged through all 3 of the top 3 positions. How many engines has Max used? Will he get a penalty if he uses another? Yes. But that's the same for anybody. So you have a certain amount of engines that you can use, and you can actually intersperse them. So even though you've got that many, it doesn't mean like they use one engine for the first 4 races, then one engine for the next ones. It's like the way they use them is kind of they plan out which races they're going to use which engines for. So they balance it out a little bit more throughout the season, to be honest. Max leading the fast McLarens. I don't know if I should get it for PS4 or my PC. The Formula 1 game? Ooh, good question. Depends if you want to get like a full setup at some point, you know what I mean? Depends if you want to get a full kind of wheel and pedals, etc., etc. Just trying to see. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton just having a little bit of a struggle. So we can have a little look at the race trace. Just having a little look now. Wow, that is not what I wanted. A little gander. I think this is... Yeah, you can see the McLaren's just starting to fall off now in terms of that pace in comparison to Max Verstappen, although Lando Norris will start to come back towards Oscar Piastri, it looks like. And you can just see Carlos Sainz is under pressure from Lewis Hamilton, but is now closing in. In fact, everybody going a little bit quicker than Max Verstappen last time around in this kind of pack of 4 from George Russell down to Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez just running his own race all by himself, which is a shame. Interesting, though. Just looks like everybody is kind of plateauing off a little bit. Valtteri Bottas dropping off a little bit. Zhou Guanyu also. Yeah, the Stake Saubers just, again, look nothing like it in terms of what we're expecting from them doing. little gander at this. Want to get like a little bit more of a view. Oh yeah, Lando Norris is closing in. There you go. The Lando Norris now closing in on Oscar Piastri pretty heavily. So this is our top 5. Verstappen at the top. Lando Norris closing in. Oh, but a little mistake possibly. Now as DRS on Oscar Piastri is going to close in. I think we're going to see a little battle between the two McLarens, which could be quite entertaining. See if we've got the top 10 that we can have a little look at too. So we've got these 4 down here. Not really any interchange that's happening. All of them on a little bit of a kind of trajectory with one another. Can't see Carlos Sainz getting back in front of Russell. But also Hamilton, I thought was, closing in on Carlos Sainz. Just feels like they're kind of matching one another now in terms of pace. It's that DRS advantage that Carlos Sainz still has behind George Russell. Lewis Hamilton's DRS not really giving him too much of an advantage behind either. So it is now Lando Norris versus Oscar Piastri, the main battle to be watching. And Lando Norris closing into the back of his teammate. This maybe is where Piastri, I talked about it just before the race. What's my real name? James. There you go. I was talking about Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris just before the race. And I was saying, Oscar Piastri is just missing that little bit of tyre awareness from his tool belt at this moment in time. You can see he is racy, and when he's got the tyres, can make the moves. Got around his teammate really, really well. But now we're looking at Lando Norris having that advantage on tyres, closing in on his teammate, just keeping his tyres that little bit fresher, that little bit nicer, and looking like they could have a little bit of a battle with one another. Lando Norris just a little bit slower than his teammate last lap, but that is because he's now right underneath his rear wing. Coming through turn 6. Oh, Daniel Ricciardo. Making a move? Possibly. Yeah, getting on the back of Logan Sargent. Daniel Ricciardo breezes by the Williams into turn 4. Logan Sargent down into 17th. Daniel Ricciardo up to 16th. Interesting. Oscar Piastri then. Interesting to see what the McLaren team say about this, to be honest. Lando Norris clearly quicker right now, but obviously whilst these two battle, Max Verstappen is elongating his lead. 7 laps left to go. You wouldn't say that Lando Norris is likely to be able to make up that 3 seconds to Max Verstappen anyway, so it's not like swapping the cars around would actually give Lando Norris the opportunity to kind of go at Verstappen. And therefore, we might actually see Oscar Piastri just having to hold on to this position in front of Lando Norris on merit. Russell, Sainz, Hamilton, and Leclerc have all kind of settled into their positions. I think Lewis Hamilton now is the only one of those 4 with DRS, but I think it's just a little bit late on the tyres. Maybe we'll go for a move after reserving some energy. I think it's going to be tough for Lewis Hamilton to make a move on Carlos Sainz this late into the race. But having said that, Lewis Hamilton is Lewis Hamilton. He'll go for it if he sees that gap open up. Lando Norris with DRS behind Oscar Piastri down towards turn 4. It's right underneath him once again. And Lewis Hamilton the same behind Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz still with a tow from George Russell that's helping. But Carlos Sainz outside of the DRS range now. Charles Leclerc has also dropped off the back of that pack quite substantially by a couple of seconds. Sergio Perez in 8th place, and the final point scoring place, Kevin Magnussen has been all by himself for basically this entire Grand Prix. He's elongated a lovely little gap for himself ahead of Lance Stroll in 10th, where Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly are trying their absolute best in the Alpines to move back up towards their starting positions. Ocon down in 11th now, Gasly in 12th. They, remember, started in 8th and 9th place. Then we've got Yuki Tsunoda in 13th. Alonso 14th. Hasn't been able to do too much from that position. Hulkenberg in 15th. Daniel Ricciardo 16th. Sargent, Bottas, Albon, and Zhou Guanyu at the back of the pack. If you are enjoying this, if you could leave a like on the channel, that'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. We're going to be back live again for the qualifying session for the full Grand Prix later on this afternoon. But for now, we're still watching Lando Norris on the rear wing of Oscar Piastri. Lewis Hamilton underneath the rear wing of Carlos Sainz as well. But we are looking like this might be how it ends. Hamilton just struggling to keep within that kind of half a second that you need to be within to actually make a move. And Lando Norris frustrated behind his teammate now. But Oscar Piastri doing a very good job to keep Lando Norris behind. And it does make you wonder, considering there's not really too much that they can gain as the McLaren team now, because Max Verstappen is too far ahead, almost 4 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri, whether or not the McLaren team have just kind of said to them to hold position. Although it doesn't look like it. Lando Norris kind of closing in every now and then, and Piastri then having to elongate through the kind of middle sector. Lando, this is no longer like the racing, no longer the racing. There you go. So Lando Norris just being prompted a little bit to maybe just hold position behind Oscar Piastri at this point. Carlos Sainz being told there's no DRS, so go for it. And Hamilton closing in again. Alex Albon also trying to make a move on Valtteri Bottas, side by side with the Williams and the State cars. And Alex Albon, I think, has managed to just about get ahead into turn 4. He has. Alex Albon takes the position from Valtteri Bottas up into 18th place. And that really just shows the State Sauber cars are absolutely nowhere when it's come to this weekend. And I can't imagine seeing Bottas or Zhou doing anything too exciting come the Grand Prix. Same for the Williamses, though, to be fair. Sargent has dropped down a couple of positions. Albon, of course, started in the pit lane, but has only been able to get as high as 18th. Looks like those two teams are not really in the mix this weekend. Then you've got the RBs, the Hasses, the Aston Martins, the Alpines. They will all be looking at 9th and 10th place and thinking we can get in there for the full Grand Prix. There are some points available to us, so going to be very exciting through that midfield pack. And then moving up into the top 4 teams, Sergio Perez needs something to go his way. Oh, Fernando Alonso. Is there a mistake from Fernando Alonso down to turn 3? Just lost a couple of positions very swiftly. Hulkenberg and Ricciardo move up in front of Fernando Alonso. It just makes you wonder if the Aston Martin had a problem there. Let's have a little look. Hulkenberg goes up the inside of Fernando Alonso. Oh, and goes way too deep. And then Fernando Alonso is kind of caught up in the squabble, and that opens the door for Daniel Ricciardo as well. So Hulkenberg, that is a little bit cheeky, isn't it? Because dives up the inside, pushes Fernando Alonso way wide. And Fernando Alonso has to use the runoff area, come back onto the track, and Alonso now down into 16th place. But as I say, the RBs, the Alpines, the Aston Martins, the Hasses, they'll all be looking at those point-scoring places. You know, 9th and 10th place will become point-scoring places for the full Grand Prix. They'll all think there's 3 points up for grabs for them. Sergio Perez in 8th place. Charles Leclerc a couple of seconds off Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton still behind Carlos Sainz, but as I said earlier, I think the tyres have gone off that tiny little bit too far. Lewis Hamilton to really be able to lunge up the inside of Carlos Sainz as we go on to the final lap. George Russell ahead in 4th place. then it is still the top three: Verstappen, Piastri, and Norris. Verstappen leading, Piastri now 4 seconds off the lead. Lando Norris still within DRS range of his teammate, but I think has settled in to 3rd place. Unfortunate for Lando Norris. Lando will be a little bit frustrated. Led the Grand Prix for all of one straight. And there is that incident between Hülkenberg and Alonso, forcing another driver off the track. I think not too much to kind of be worried about because the incident is so far down the pack. But I think that was a stonewall penalty from Nico Hülkenberg, to be honest with you. Went up the inside, didn't actually make the corner. So not too much Fernando Alonso could do about it. And here we go then. Max Verstappen around turn 9, around turn 10. And is going to get another victory here at the home of Red Bull, and a lot of orange in the crowd for Max Verstappen, but also for Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, who will come home 2nd and 3rd place. Russell confirms 4th, Carlos Sainz 5th, Hamilton 6th, Charles Leclerc then comes across the line in 7th place, and Sergio Perez picks up the final points scoring position. Kevin Magnussen the closest to it. Really good run from Kevin Magnussen, actually. Very, very impressed with him in that sprint race. Thought he did tremendously in that Haas car. Got himself up into 9th place and then extended away from the rest of the pack. Bodes really well come the Grand Prix if they can get qualifying right later on today. And then Lance Stroll also with a solid defensive performance. Wasn't able to escape Ocon and Gasly as such, but was able to keep his Aston Martin inside the top 10. Just a shame that in the sprint, you only get points for those top 8 positions. Then behind the top 10, as I said, we had Ocon and Gasly in 11th and 12th place. They'll be a little bit frustrated having started 8th and 9th. Tsunoda down in 13th, Hülkenberg up to 14th, Ricciardo 15th, Fernando Alonso after that incident down into 16th, Sargent and Albon in the Williams 17th and 18th, Bottas and Joe round out the drivers for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like. We are again live later on today for qualifying. What is it, 2:30? We'll be live for the qualifying session here in Austria. But Max Verstappen takes the victory in the sprint once again. Another performance that just shows even if you have got a car that can match the Red Bull, you need to also be able to match Max Verstappen, which is one thing that is a little bit trickier than we maybe give the drivers credit for. As I said, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new. We'll be back later on today, and I will see you then.